Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You are joined by your podcast host, Morgan Rushton.
Me. Elwitz.
And Luke the single dad in his Ford Cougar. He's had a new car. It's a 7-seater family carrier. Is it fast?
Got a bit to it.
ST line. How many brake horse? 750. I don't know cars, I'm not a car guy. We are back. The upper lower splitters no more. The push pull legs is back in the rotation. We're gonna go and train pull at old school, like the old days, and absolutely fucking smash it. That's about it, really.
That's it.
That's about it. We're just gonna fucking smash it. Right, okay, first exercise is this hammer strength pull down. We go for a lat pull down. We're gonna go for a chest supported row for the upper back, a lat biased row, and then probably an upper back pull down.
We're on T-bar.
Oh shit, yeah, T-bar, sorry. Not an upper back pull down, we've got a T-bar. So with this, you want to sit a little bit further back in the seat, and rather than pulling from really overhead, which is not ideal for the lats, we want to be pulling a little bit in front of us. So you sit a little bit further back. That also improves the resistance profile, so it'll drop off a little bit more as we get short. He's a pedo, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's dead. That's that then. Here's a question. What do you think the biggest mistake people make with the training is? The number one that you see the most often? I know what mine is.
Racing.
Racing.
Like it's a race to finish a set. That's
Racing to finish, yeah.
like it's a fucking race to the stop.
Yeah. And stopping when it just starts to get hard. They'll feel the burn a little bit. Actually, that's the most common. The rep will start to slow down a little bit, and rather than pushing through it, they just let it go. That's when
Race to that point.
top set, I've got a 20 and a 15 on there. I'm just being conservative, I'm being sensible, because I did 2 plates just, and that felt a little bit too heavy. Felt it on the shoulder a bit. Blah.
Go. Nice.
You want to keep all that tension on your lats, right? What I see a lot of people do is they'll use the body and do this and create momentum. You don't want any momentum. Remove any momentum, any bouncing at all. You want all the tension on your lat. I'm gripping here to basically pull myself in, and I'm pushing my left thigh up into this pad. So I've got those counter forces now. I'm nice and stable, and I can just drive down and keep all that tension on my lat. Da.
Go.
And again. Drive. Come on. So a little tip for you, if you're spotting someone, wherever their input is, so for example on a leg extension, the input would be you've got the pad on your shin. Now what you don't want to do when you're spotting someone is to pull that machine away from them. So you can see there, when I'm spotting Luke, rather than grabbing the machine and pulling it, I'm pushing on his hand just slightly, just enough to keep that weight moving smoothly. I'm not pushing it to the point where he doesn't have to do any of the work, because we still want him to carry on moving that weight with the muscle he's trying to target. But if we apply a little bit of tension, we can just keep that moving smoothly. So at the moment we're training, I'm basically just seeing what I can get away with. So me and Jack had a conversation yesterday. We went through some posing, and we were just talking about the training. Obviously, I finished the rehab program I was doing, and we basically come to the agreement that yes, that training is great for rehabbing an injury, but in terms of bodybuilding and building muscle, we need to be pushing as close to failure as we possibly can, and we definitely need more volume in the delts, the arms, the adductors, the areas I've been neglecting. So at the moment it's just an experimental process of seeing what I can get away with, how far I can push my shoulder. So that's why I'm working in those higher rep ranges. I'm not taking any 50-50 reps. If I'm thinking, am I going to get this rep, I'm just not going to go for it. So we're still pushing as close to failure as we can, but being very conservative and safe about things. Do you still watch it as well? Because I used to let my spine flex over the bench.
I don't take the big unit. I think I used to, on the lower, I used to shoot ball.
Yeah. I stopped doing it and just keeping my chest proud And if you just let your shoulder blades naturally wrap around, it feels way better, I think. So what I was just saying to Luke about then is the way we used to perform this was we used to let our spine flex over the bench, which, yes, you're going to get more length out of your traps, but then that initial pull, that initial row, the initial bit of range of motion, it's basically just spinal extensors. So you're just going from this position and flex to extended. Now, if you just keep that chest proud, keep that spine extended, and think about letting your scapula basically just rotate, just go round your rib cage, you get a lot better stretch and you can keep that tension on the muscles. Whereas when you're just letting your spine flex over, it's more like passive tension. So before I start any row, I'll strap in, obviously, and then before I even start, what you'll see is I create tension by just inhaling, expanding everything, so I'm nice and strong, I've got a strong core, and that unwraps the weight for me before I even have to start rowing.
Nice. Let's go, keep that control. Good. Try get a nice tip. Nice, nice, nice. Nice.
That was probably a tad bit too heavy. I got 6, so I'll probably drop the weight a fair bit. That was 65, so I'll probably go 50 kilos on the next set, just so we can accumulate a little bit more volume without obviously hurting the shoulder. So with this lat bias row, I always see the same mistake, and that's just letting your shoulder roll forward. People always think the more range of motion, the better. When we're trying to train the lats, it's not, because the lats move the upper arm. They don't move the scapula. Now the traps move the scapula. So if we're letting that shoulder roll forward, we're letting that scapula protract loads, our traps have then got to work to retract that before we then row. So it's going to be taking tension away from your lats. Now, if we can think about just reaching forward to the point where we feel a stretch on the lat and keeping that shoulder down, we can then just think about driving down. A lot of people think the range of motion in this is huge. It's not. The range of motion for the lat in a row is actually quite small. We're going to go with this wide grip pull down for the upper back rather than the chest supported row, just because my shoulder feels so much more stable after I've done this wide grip pull down. I don't know what it is. It must just hit a certain muscle group. I reckon it's possibly my teres major. Your teres is more like your lat's little helper, so it'll help to get that last little bit of the lat short. So I reckon it maybe because of that pull down motion in that plane, it might just target that teres major a little bit more, which is what I need to keep that scapula and keep that shoulder stable. I don't know what it is specifically, I couldn't tell you, but it works. What people will do is they'll rock back and forth. So rather than staying fixed back here and keeping that chest up and just pulling down, contract hard, and then letting that bar go back up, feeling that stretch on the upper back, and then pulling again, they'll go like this. And then they'll use this momentum to throw the weight down, and then they'll just do that. So just keep that torso fixed in place, stay leant back, and just drive those elbows down and back. And then to finish off, we've got some arms. I always like to go with, on a pull day, I'll do a bicep exercise which hits those biceps in a lengthen range, just because they're already warm and they already will have been used to some degree in all of your pulling motions, your rowing motions. And then we'll hit a tricep exercise that targets those triceps in a more shortened range. Reason being, they're going to be safer generally. You know, when you stretch out a muscle, you're going to be at higher risk of injury. So my triceps aren't going to be warmed because we've not really used them. We haven't pressed, we haven't pushed down anything. And then on a push day, I will have a bicep exercise which targets the shortened range, so a preacher curl, and then a tricep exercise which is going to hit that lengthened range. So something like either an overhead cable extension or a JM press. Now the main mistake with this, similar to the bicep curl, is I see too many people, rather than pinning their elbows back here, on the eccentric, it'll come forward like this, and then push down. You're taking tension away from your triceps. Keep everything locked in, pin down, think about digging your elbow into your armpit, pack it into your lats, fix there, and then just extend, contract hard, and then on the way back up, think about pushing your elbow back slightly, and that will just keep that tension on your tricep. The shoulders are in a neutral position. They're not retracted like this, they're not protracted, neutral, and then just contract hard. So that is the session done. I've got 20 minutes of cardio now. We've just done some abs, we've got some carbs afterwards as well. I feel like I'm in the gym, mate, for like, well, I am genuinely in the gym for like 3 hours, but it's all part of prep, I suppose, for the best fucking physique yet.
Woo! You know what time it is, boys. It is post-workout rocket lolly time. 39 calories in these bad boys. The taste to calorie ratio is extremely high. The main thing to take away from this video is when it comes to any of your training, just drop the ego, man. Like, your muscle fibers don't give a fuck how much weight is on that bar. Only you do, and your ego. So drop the ego, drop the weight, and use way more control and way more intensity. Because people think weight equals intensity. It doesn't. You can still take a very light weight to failure. That's what intensity is. Your proximity to failure. So you can still take a 5 kilo dumbbell to failure if you were to rep it out for long enough. And that's gonna be all. So if you do have any questions about back training, about any training, any requests, specific requests, drop them down in the comments section below, and I will see you boys in the next one.